It's David. So we recently got back from Canada, and I want to tell a story of what we did and where we went, and in an organised way. I feel like I've told this story to a few friends, and it's usually me scrolling around a Google map talking about things, but it's very hard to get all the bits together. We have like proper photos, but also photos we took on our phone, Instagram reels, that kind of stuff. And it's very hard to tell that story in real life. So I decided to make a YouTube video like this one, where I go through all of the stuff, tell all the story, put some historical detail in there too, and tell the story of our holiday adventures in Canada. It also gives me an excuse to point at my photos that I put on Instagram, some of them I don't, and tell what happened when I went there, why I took those, and give some background information to those. I feel like a lot of the photos don't get seen by people because the Instagram algorithm it's just full of crap. It doesn't rank photos very highly these days. So this is an opportunity to point at my photos, tell the stories behind them, sprinkle in some historical detail, and hopefully it'll be interesting. I should apologize in advance. A lot of the video content is in a vertical format, which might not look great in horizontal YouTube format, but we'll see how it goes. Also, should point out that I'm not a video editor or a video person in general, so this could be interesting. But hopefully I'm going to try and make some videos roughly like 20 minutes long. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so the backstory. So I started planning this trip in 2024. We just come back from Japan, and usually I have big trips like this one as something to look forward to. This was meant to be our big trip of 2025, but in the end it didn't turn out that way. I did a lot of gallivanting around the world. We went to Seattle in April, Singapore in May, Las Vegas in September, and Canada in November. And whilst we were there, we kind of realized that we do a lot of travel in autumn, winter. We don't normally go on holiday during the summer. So why winter? Well, things in the summer tend to be more expensive because that's when everyone can go on holiday. Places are really busy. There's lots of people with screaming kids. I, as a British person, cannot handle the heat, and it tends to be hot in the summer unless you go up north. And it also aligns well with work. We have performance reviews in August and September, and that makes it really busy. So October, November is generally quieter. Sometimes we go in February, and I want snowy places. That's my vibe. I like cold and snowy. So this is how we landed on October. But we also have other stuff in October. So every year we go to Spiel. Now Spiel is a massive board gaming conference in Germany, in Essen. And we've attended for the past 3 or 4 years. We're closet board gaming people. I've fallen out a little bit, so I didn't go this year. But Yana likes going. She likes teaching people and selling board games, and it usually goes on for 3 or 4 days. Usually it's the start of October, but this year, somewhat annoyingly, it was the end of October, which kind of puts some challenges in our plans. We could have decided to go before Essen and then come back and do Essen afterwards. The other option is that we do Essen first and then we go to Canada. In the end, we decided to do the second option and do Essen first and then go to Canada. So we ended up booking one of the last days in October and then going in the first couple of weeks in November. What we didn't realize at the time was that the season ends in mid-October and winter begins on the 1st November. Winter in Canada brings a whole host of challenges that you don't get in the Netherlands. The weather deteriorates, which it does in the Netherlands. You get more snow, lakes are frozen, the road becomes more treacherous, sometimes they close the roads, hotels and petrol stations, especially on the route we wanted to take, close, the attractions close, so things like Malangi Lake, there's a boat, in the summer it runs up the lake, but it closes in the winter because there's nobody there, so that becomes a bit of a challenge. There's no public transport, or very little. It may be regionalised to the bigger cities. You don't tend to get things that are going up and down the road so much. But on the upside, it is much cheaper because there's less people there. You get the winter rate, it's quieter, and November is still early winter. It's not February with minus 30, 40 degrees where it's dangerous to go outside. And there is a lower risk of bears, so it's not all bad. As a side note, I plan the majority of our holidays in our relationship. Jana just shows up. She says she is the suitcase. She would definitely prefer to be on a sunny beach versus traipsing around the Canadian wilderness in deep snow. So this is very much a David holiday. This whole trip is orientated around the train. It's called the Canadian. It's a famous train route, the second longest direct passenger journey in the world, after the Trans-Siberian in Russia, which we can't go to because of obvious reasons. It travels from Vancouver to Toronto. It's like 4,466 kilometers long, which is around 2,775 miles, and it takes you 4 days to go end to end. It runs twice a week, and it passes a lot of stops on the way. It doesn't always stop, but it does stop at the big places. You can actually go from Vancouver to Halifax, and you connect the Canadian with another very scenic train line called the Ocean, and that goes from Montreal to Halifax. But we didn't have time to do both, especially with the train only going twice a week. We wanted to see stuff, so we decided not to do the second bit. Originally, we were going to do Vancouver to Montreal, but we decided to scrap the Montreal part because we discovered that Toronto and Montreal are not that close. And yeah, it would take 5-6 hours to get there on a train. It was risky. We might have missed our flight. We had plenty of things to do in Toronto, so we decided to scrap Montreal altogether, fly out from Toronto. This was a long trip, but we didn't know what we were getting into. A few years ago, we did the California Zephyr. We picked it up halfway at Grand Junction, rode it all the way to Chicago, which is approximately like 28 hours. But I imagine a lot of people watching this might be considering, like, why don't you just fly? It's much faster, it's cheaper, and you can do a lot more things instead of sitting on a train. But I like the romance of trains. Just get on, you can just chill, look out the window, maybe you can have a beer. There's unique scenery that you can only reach by rail. And it feels, old-fashioned, traditional. You live by a timetable, it's slow, and it feels more like a genuine way to travel, in my opinion. But I know it's not for everybody. So our first stop is Vancouver. We flew directly from Amsterdam with KLM, of course. It takes around 10 hours. It's important to point out that we barely had 2 days there. We're in Vancouver purely because the train starts there. We didn't actually have that many things that we wanted to see. But maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about the history of Vancouver just a little bit. Before Vancouver was Vancouver, it nearly became Spanish. Spain and Britain almost went to war over it in 1789, but Spain blinked. They realised they couldn't fight the British, and they had no friends to help them out. The French were busy with the French Revolution, and in 1795, the Spanish gave up completely and left. It's important to note that this area has been inhabited by indigenous people for tens of thousands of years. So they weren't the first people to show up, but they were the first Western people to show up. It wasn't all rosy for the British though. They had just lost the American Revolution. Up until the 1860s, the area was a very remote outpost, primarily logging. In 1867, Gassy Jack opened a saloon for mill workers, and in 1870 he'd grown into a settlement of Granville, though everyone called it Gastown after the saloon, and later on this became Gastown, like a neighbourhood in Vancouver. But the area was still very remote. You'd still have to take a very dangerous boat journey from Britain, going via Cape Horn in South America and coming all the way up. It would take many months, and it was very dangerous. There was no Panama Canal at that time. So this area was pretty much cut off for most of the year. It wasn't until the railway arrived in 1886 that things began to change. It was also the time that Granville got renamed to Vancouver on account of the Canadian Pacific Railway executive insisting on renaming it because people in Toronto and Montreal had no idea where Granville was. Today, Granville only survives in street names like Granville Street and Granville Island. As you can see, the railway is really important for the city's development and connected it to the rest of Canada. But like in many major cities of their day, thinking like London, San Francisco, Vancouver burnt to the ground in less than 30 minutes, less than 3 months after it became a city. It's pretty remarkable that they rebuilt the whole thing only months later. It's now home to over 700,000 people, a major metropolis with 2.7 million people living in the wider area. It's the 4th most expensive city in the world for housing. So my favourite memory of Vancouver was probably the Seawall Trail. It's a leisurely cycle, or you can walk, around Stanley Park, and it goes past the Tone Poles, Rockton Port Lighthouse, the girl in the wetsuit. It passes under Lionsgate Bridge. It has great views from Prospect Point Lookout. It's pretty flat, it's chill. I'd recommend cycling it if you're going to do it, because it's like 10 kilometers. So walking just takes far too long. You can do it, it just, yeah, who's got time for that? I enjoyed watching the seaplanes land on the water. It's not something we have in the Netherlands. Apparently this is one of the busiest water aerodromes in the world. They have 50,000 like takeoffs and landings every year, which is pretty wild. I became a bit obsessed with this Chevron petrol station in the middle of the water. It's there for planes and boats, but it seems completely out of place. It's surrounded by the beautiful landscape, and then there's this petrol station like in the middle of it. It has this bright sign, and it seems very dystopian and out of place. I have so many photos of this petrol station. I don't normally take photos of petrol stations, but yeah. I don't know. We have this photo, which is sort of the final one I came out with. I'm not sure if I'm totally happy with it, but yeah, it's okay. We also saw the steam clock in Gastown. It's one of the must-sees when you're there. I discovered though that it was built in the 1970s, not in the 1800s, which is kind of disappointing. And then food-wise, we feasted like kings. I had pancakes, more pancakes, donuts. You can see it's all very healthy. They were really yummy, if not a bit large for my European appetite. We also went to Granville Island, another tourist hotspot. It's a foodie paradise. You can get lots of stuff there, but we just had breakfast, pancakes, so it was a bit lost on us. We did buy several kilos of fruit because we failed to understand the imperial way system. And that was basically it. We only had 2 days in Vancouver. They flew past. I feel like we made good use of the time, and for the most part we were really lucky with the weather. But yeah, the adventure really begins here with the train. Okay, so more about the train. So the first leg is 19 hours. It's 847 kilometers, 526 miles. It goes from Vancouver to Jasper. It's 22 carriages long normally. In winter they shorten it to 11. There's less demand in the winter, it's cold and dark and people don't travel. The train is split into 2 sections, economy and sleeper plus. You can travel the whole route in economy, but it's probably not recommended. You sit in, they're moderately comfortable seats, but you're sat in a seat for 4 days. Yes, you can move. It's not like a plane, you're not bolted to the chair, but it's probably not great. So I probably would recommend doing the sleeper cabin, paying a bit more. The sleeper plus sections are split into berths, 1-person cabin, 2-person cabin, and then prestige. And they all have varying price points. They include food, 3 cooked meals a day. If you want, you can have snacks and beers also, but you have to pay for those. Alcohol is extra, as mentioned, but if you're in prestige, it's included. But prestige is really expensive. We're talking like $5,000 to $8,000 a person. I don't think it's worth it. The room is really nice, but we can just slum it. The train runs twice a week. If you get off, you have to be fairly committed to that place. If we'd have had more time, I'd have liked to get off in a few more places. We had a very condensed timeline and we needed to make sure we were getting the flights. Like the US, passenger trains have to give way to cargo trains. The cargo companies own the tracks, with the exception of the Eastern Corridor, where the passenger companies own the tracks. This means that passenger trains are often really late, they're not very reliable, though it does feel like they add time to the schedule at the end. Somehow, our train went from being 8 hours late to arriving in Toronto early. I don't know how that happens. But yeah, it's common for you to be waiting for cargo trains in a siding for long periods, like up to 3 hours. So if you're trying to get somewhere quickly and cheaply, the train is probably not the way to go. Also, like the US, the train travel is under-subsidized, means that trains are really old. Our train was built in the 1950s. It's still good, but yeah, compared to Europe, these trains are really old. They're slow and, as I say, infrequent. But there are some other options. There is the Rocky Mountaineer, which is a fancy new train. It travels on a slightly different route and does a few other different routes as well. It's not just this one. It travels only during the day. So you're on the train in the daytime, there's also excursions, and then they stop and you stay in a hotel at night. So it means that you really see everything, you don't miss things because it's dark, which is nice. It is much more expensive. I looked at the route from Vancouver to Jasper that's in April next year, and it's like 1,500 euros a person. So it's not cheap. So back to our travels, we finally got called and there's a general excitement of everyone surging towards the train. The prestige people are closest to the train station at the back. You can see in this video they have a roof, so they're not getting wet. But riffraff like us are in steerage, which is the front of the train. And as we discovered, the roof runs out about halfway and you get pretty wet between that bit and the door. We were in the berths section, so these are seats by day, and then when you're having dinner, the cabin person folds down the seats. There's a mattress that goes on top of that, and then there's a bed that they pull down from the ceiling. So the beds are pretty wide, they're very cozy, there's like a curtain dividing you from the corridor, there's toilets, showers, which are very clean and nice. The shower's a bit old though. And they provide sheets, duvets, pillows, towels. Plugs are much harder to come by. As mentioned, you get a cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the train. You're often paired with just random other people. So it's going to lead to kind of interesting conversations, though sometimes the language barrier gets in the way. There's a lot of French in Canada, and my French isn't that great. So that one breakfast was a bit of a struggle. But the food is good quality, and it's pretty tasty. So after we set off, it was grey and rainy. There's a dome car, which is kind of in the roof of the train, which allows you to look out and see all the views. But the sun set at like 5 p.m. and it gets very dark and then there's nothing to see. The train is slow. It feels like it's going around 50 kilometers an hour, but it does speed up later in the trip. We ended up having dinner and then went to bed fairly early. Again, jet lag making things interesting. The train moves and shakes and it makes some noise, but it's pretty manageable. If you struggle with noise, like earplugs would be fine and you get used to it. The next day, we woke up on the edge of the Rockies. The landscape changes from being fields and rural to being mountainous and forested. There's pretty lakes and rivers. The water starts getting blue. I start to get really excited because this is like the whole reason why we're here. I think this is a really good place to kind of stop. I will continue to make more videos like this one. It takes some time though, so I'm gonna chunk them up and release them slowly. So yeah, please like and subscribe and all that good YouTuber stuff. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks.